and welcome back one and all. Zoe here, joined by Mitch and Kevin, and we're here to bring you all the action here in the OWCS Stage 3 Day 2 Group Stage. One match done, and we have 5 more to go, so let's get cracking. Talking about our Group B, we're now going to look at the winners match here, but first let's take a look at the teams which are currently finding themselves in said group in the bracket. Obviously, Oh Yeah and ENCE is going to be the match we will be talking about in just a second. And they are probably also just considered the 2 strongest teams in there. Although I personally am a fan of Meta Boys. They're all Polish, right?
Really?
I think they are.
There's literally a Swiss player on OWCS I know.
Yeah, but he's not been...
traitor.
I can't believe you. That's crazy.
Wow. I have to figure out where from Switzerland he's from before I can buy it.
Oh yeah, if he's from Zurich, you have a problem, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Then I gotta hate. Well, let's talk about ENCE here. ENCE, obviously another like world-class EU team. If we're looking at their performance in EWC, I mean, they had a really tough group there, Kevin, and they did end up losing in the quarterfinals against the tournament winner, so nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, I think they beat Fnatic though, so that's, you know, they did take down a Korean team, which
they were dodgy though.
Okay, but SSG didn't do it. SSG didn't do it. Okay, that's the main point here. But I also want to talk about what the players here before we move away from this roster. Most importantly, Calix is back, so he had a stint on Twisted Minds in Stage 1. Now Calix is back on the team replacing Masa. There's been a couple of departures. Mimone as well, I think, is a huge boon for this team, just like Psycho was to SSG, so look out for him.
Yeah, but Oh Yeah, I mean, they made a few little changes. They're known as our one-trick team here.
Gurkmeister.
The Gurkmeister is in, also a junk player, so don't worry. Just because Kaya is now an analyst, we still have a junk player.
I mean, I say that. I only said that because Gurkmeister, obviously tough to find dead information. I'm trying to research a little bit. I go to their X profile, and their bio says Junkrat.
Just that.
Junkrat.
I'm sold.
That's not even a Jake's bio. That's crazy.
How dare you?
Could be.
Like,
could mean anything, honestly. But
chat. How dare you? How dare you?
Wrong.
Look how sad the face is.
It's not wrong.
3%.
Like factually, like ENCE will obviously win, but Oh Yeah has been entertaining us. Give him a little.
You know what I get out of this? I think the fans expect more out of Oh Yeah than they did out of Hypnos, because that was 98-2. This is 97-3.
Yeah, in fact, they expect 50% more from them. Actually, that's crazy.
That's it.
Numbers, we know them. Well, I'm ready for this match. I heard the teams are ready to rumble as well. Let's see if ENCE is going to take that as easy as our chat predicts.
Yeah, I am very, very curious to see how this one pans out. So we're going to jump here now. Anyway, map set and see us starting on Lijiang Tower here. I'm really glad, Kevin, that you touched on the topic of Mimone here because, you know, yeah, a huge boon to this team, but also Mimone gets subbed in at support and plays ERE. On occasion, especially on like Circuit Royal, for example, and well, he plays off angle off DPS. At least he has against some of these teams so far. So obviously, Mimone as a DPS player normally is still flexing into that role and giving ENCE another option when they have these Pharah-based comps. This is one of the teams in EMEA that's been really pushing their Pharah setup, and it's very, very powerful.
I'm going to pull one out for my brother Mirror out there. Chris, unfortunately, he's off the roster. He actually played an insane Alari at World Cup, so to hear that he's not going to be the one holding the Alari cannon up in the sky for the Captain Sun for this team anymore does unfortunately hurt my soul slightly, because I was surprised at how good Mirror was, but maybe he'll be swapping over. I'm excited to see what Calix is going to bring to the table now. This team has had a reasonable amount of changes. I mean, they also lost Crimzo over the course of the World Cup, so they don't have a coach now. They lost Gumbo, they lost Crimzo. This is now going to be mostly, I think, a player coach team. Unless Master's going to step in, you know, Old Man Master, which he was last seen fishing. I caught a stream, and he was out in Finland fishing in the rain, so he wasn't even playing the official. Not even close. Wasn't even available to sub in.
Than that.
Unless he had the Starlink out there, you know, getting ready to play from the laptop. But no, that wasn't the case. So Master's, I don't know if Master's really playing anymore. So I think it's going to be Calix Skyripper the entire way through. And you're going to see a decent amount of rotation between the DPS. Kevster's obviously a lock-in. But for the actual echo stuff, because what ENCE was missing before was, with the classic Kevster card, you really don't have the double flex DPS capability to play like the Trace and Echoes at the same time. That's quite prevalent in the meta, so you need someone to step in. And Mimone, he was huge on that role in the World Cup, so I'm expecting the same and more now.
Yeah, and again, this team obviously has options at their tank position, right? If you think back to Dallas, it was Vistola who played that entire event, and if you haven't followed this team since then, you might have forgotten that Chase Torch is a huge part of this roster. Incredible tank player, and we've seen a lot of that dive from him. His absence in Dallas was what kind of hedged ENCE into having to play the comps that suited Pistola's hero pool a lot more than those more aggressive, more proactive dive setups. So ENCE do have those options here. We saw a lot of Chase in their previous game yesterday.
I think for ENCE though, Vistola's hero pool is still really good in this meta. Thankfully, you can hard spam D.Va if you do want to play dive, so they're not going to be hit that hard. Obviously, you can't play the Winston, but it's kind of whatever for ENCE. Rolling out Control Center, Lucio, BAP, coming through. Big broad comp from ENCE. Oh yeah. Not one tricking too hard just yet, except for Gurkmeister.
Yeah.
And you jump on the field.
They went specifically looking for another junk player to replace Kaya. I do respect that. Kaiser obviously sat on the bench here for the time being. And Coolboy 163 at Lucio. So again, ENCE have to respect the junk to some degree here, which does maybe preclude them from playing these more close-quartered side rooms here. As you can see, the amount of damage that Pistola's taking means he has to get out a little earlier.
Not good control though. Gurkmeister's looking for a little bit of an off angle here, looking for that damage. Not a bad pick for Control Center. So, this is going to be where you see the best of the junk. I don't think the junk's going to work out too well on the other maps, but here you need to see Gurkmeister really step it up.
Yeah, great options here, of course, for the junk, and his mobility will allow him to play that right side of the map if he has to. Pressure is good, but this is definitely feeding Sky's ultimate a lot. Kevster gets taken down. It's Coolboy with the first casualty of the game. Isaac's done well, balancing his shields and Nemesis form to stay alive for the most part, and this is going to force ENCE to back away. Another remote mine here since Maimon Skyward forced into Ice Block.
Sky's got all coming up, so that's going to be super usable. Maimon's a little bit further behind. Kevster's really not found a lot of purchase so far. A little bit of a weird role for him. You don't often see Kevster on those hit scans, and some would say he is a hyperflex, but honestly, he's played way more of the flex DPS role. Maimon goes down, so possibly another reset.
Yeah, maybe expecting in the past to see Kevster on that main a little bit more. It's not the option though. Blow that trap up now, try and push up. Immortality kill used for Vistola, who does need to make some space, but cops a huge amount of damage as a result. This is where the Junkrat goes from good to being straight up oppressive. Breaking through the wall is Gurkmeister now with a Riptire available. ENCE are completely forced off of the point again.
Riptire will be a little bit hard to use. He's going to set up for it. He's going to go high ground and just kind of be weird with the Junkrat in terms of the positioning, but it can get shot up pretty easy. Got lots of long range damage here, so ENCE already backing out. Yeah, I don't think it's going to find anything. ENCE are basically back to spawn.
No reason for ENCE to lose a player for no reason here. So
they literally all in spawn, like,
yep.
Yeah.
They are respect here because again the comp doesn't have that much mobility, right? So if they do get blindsided by a Riptire, they're going to be in trouble outside of being able to.
Got lamp, but you don't want to waste the lamp.
No way. Here comes Bob. Briefly interrupted here. But it's still going to really punish Sky Ripper, who I think was actually hit by the initial knockup despite having a lot of notice that he was coming on in. And eventually he does fall to the Bob. Oh yeah, dominating ENCE right now. Pistola tries to go for that ultimate, but Isaac is way healthier. Way more follow-up there around the Ramatra. And ENCE so far look listless.
I think Calyx needed a pop beat there. That was an opportunity where Sky was already low HP. You know he got popped up by the Bob, and ENCE struggled to walk forward. They're still struggling to walk forward. And Calyx needed to go for a tempo beat. Yes, you would have had to beat early, but you get to go into the point, get to ignore the Bob. That's ideal. Calyx is low HP now as well, and they have to go for touch soon. It's going to have to come down to Maimon. 90%.
All right. Soundberry here, of course, to play around. Vortex here, maybe slowing Calyx up a little bit, has to play around that. Pistola on the D.Va now charges straight forward. Sound barrier there from Coolboy, despite being knocked off course, doesn't have that broken up at all. So later beat for, oh yeah, and the first kill as well. Saiper rips Kevster's head clean off with the kunai. Isaac under some serious pressure from Pistola, who's been quite healthy for most of this fight, but Ken is under limited amounts of pressure despite playing very far forward. Got great damage and allows Calyx to be picked up there by Isaac. I can't believe we're seeing 100-0 against ENCE here in this first round. The Junkrat over the course of the round looks like everybody in sits up a little bit straighter when the Gurk is in the server. Great showing here from the Upstart team.
Yeah, you didn't see anything really come up on the kill feed for Gurk, but trust me, the damage was there because it certainly wasn't there for ENCE. And when you just look at the HP bars, you can see the grenades bouncing around. That's causing a lot of problems for ENCE to walk forward. Kevster was really not putting the damage out there as well compared to Ken. Again, not really seeing them too often on towards the Ash, and just either didn't have an angle, didn't have the opportunity. Multiple first picks down for ENCE on their approaches as well. Having to hide in spawn versus a tie. I mean, you got to do it, but it doesn't feel good. You're losing time for it. And they just never had a good engage. Every single window being dropped by Sky was answered by Sipe, coming through the Kitsune rush. Off-angling by Isaac, just runs into, the window, doesn't really care about it, is able to get kills in there. ENCE's one good push with the May ult with the Blizzard from Maimon just didn't work out either. So maybe for ENCE, a couple new members on the team, not particularly practiced on the brawl composition. Also a favorable map for Junkrat. Not a good start, but as I said earlier, Junkrat's strength probably ends on Control Center.
More Junk. Dirk is back on the Junkrat here as we head over towards Garden. And again, this is obviously an issue for ENCE in terms of sheer weight of damage that they're having to take, but they find a great dive opportunity. We do see teams trying to, leave that Ashe on the bridge at times here, but just so susceptible to the displacement of D.Va and also just raw dive in general. Punished straight away, and now, are corralled inside the dojo.
Yeah, but that's all they can do. They just want to bunker up so they can abuse a Junkrat, because in the open, Junkrat really doesn't do enough. So all you have to find their way into the point. Somehow Calyx has got another first pick. That's 2 in a row.
He punished Ken coming off spawn. I think actually knocked him off the bridge as he tried to get back into the fight. That is something that ENCE can exploit. The fact that will be split until Ken can rejoin them. So they switched over to the Tracer. Yeah, to make that trip back to the rest of their team a little safer.
Well, Sky and Maimona coming back from spawn as well. So ENCE actually lose ground here, or you get the flip. No ults expended and no ults found yet, actually, I should say, at this point in time. The solo being on the D.Va, I think, for this match, it's going to be much improved in terms of absorbing the damage from the Gurk. So we're looking towards Nano now.
I do think we need to stick with the Gurk. There's no better way. Guy's an absolute prince. Here's Vistola now, trying to put some pressure. Obviously, over towards the Ramatra, good damage on Isaac. D.Va just shreds them up close. Isaac, outside of that Nemesis form, is really susceptible to having the gap closed on him by that enemy tank.
Just see how much better ENCE are when they're playing a dive composition. Kevster gets to play the Tracer, Maimone's on an Echo. 2 fantastic, not just comfort picks, but, ideal picks where they get to play the ultimate strengths. Vistola as well now on the D.Va, as mentioned. The matchup does improve, especially absorbing the damage. And ENCE in a strong position where Nano was used. Sippe was down early, so no answer on the Kitsune rush, where Sippe was able to do that comfortably in Control Center. He's down so early in these fights. A lot of ults coming online for OWCS, though.
Oh, yeah, fighting inside that white room. That's something ENCE can't afford to dive into, not with the Junkrat present. It's too close-quartered. Isaac uses the Nemesis form to make some space, but it's going to be reciprocated as Maimone dupes the Ramatra and uses that same ability to re-establish ENCE's position on this point. Now we're up to 50%, but they've been able to isolate the D.Va towards the back of the fight, and Vistola never had a chance to get back in the mech. We did have an ultimate at least get to be used by Maimone for a time, but was eventually had to exit that duplicate before he got the full duration of Annihilation.
Most important thing there was that Calyx didn't have ultimate the entire way through, so ideally you have a situation where OWCS finally make the aggressive play. Calyx responds with the sound barrier, and ENCE actually have something to play with. The fact that Vistola doesn't get back to the mech is what that is going to end the fight. So if he does get back in the mech, possibility for ENCE to still play through. Calyx will find the sound barrier in his death, and now for the retake, they have another nano timing, so not a bad rotation of ults here for ENCE.
Beautiful. Calyx had that sound barrier to deploy, but Ken sticks it to him instantly. Our Sky split off from the rest of his team, but okay, actually have a hold up on his own up against Ken. Beautiful bio and follow up from Sky Reaper. Now we're in a 4 versus 4, and Vistola is ready to dive on the Nemesis-less Ramatra. That forced a sound barrier out, and Calyx has returned to the fight at just the right moment to deploy his. There's a Riptire. Respected, though, entirely by ENCE. They give up the point here. D-Mech haven't been able to recap, but getting Vistola out of mech is as good as a kill.
I mean, that's really, really strong, though. That is maybe allowing OWCS to win this fight, but can they really get more kills here? They lose Gurkmeister off the back of that one. It is a tank for a DPS, maybe worse for ENCE in the trade, and ENCE have to touch now. It's 95%.
And counting, this is the map in the balance here. ENCE need to make the play now. They've struggled to deal with this composition over the course of these last couple of rounds, and they've got no more second chances. Vistola there quickly, desperately trying to get back and peel for the rest of his team, and allows them to pick that Lucio off. Maimone accounts for Gurkmeister in the 1 versus 1. There's a focusing beam, fires the Junk in mid-air, and ENCE have done it. They managed to recover the map just in the final moments.
Yeah, Maimone really is a ticket here, because there's nothing that really pushes him out, nothing really pressures Maimone at all. Ken, after swapping from Ashe over towards the Tracer, being killed and spawned by Calyx. Tracer and Junk, really no pressure versus Maimone at all. He's got another dupe available. Another nano coming online for Sky. Sky's been really on top of these timings for the nanos, just sitting in the back healing. Hasn't had too many deaths. It's just going to do a really good job of opening up so many different plays. Both Maimone and Vistola, fantastic recipients of that nano, and nothing really to work for OWCS. They want support ultimates, and all they have is Annihilation.
They're going to try and make a play for that pretty soon. It looks like Isaac is getting in position to use that. Vortex thrown to the back of the pack for ENCE here. It's going to be Vistola getting a nano boost. But Isaac was able to find Sky Reaper somehow. He's so isolated from the rest of his team. Maybe Sky was looking for an aggressive off-angle biotic grenade. It may not matter here. The Cypher falls and Gurkmeister inexplicably is eliminated. Unclear as to why. But ENCE have been able to snatch this one back from the jaws of defeat, evening things up on Lijiang Tower.
Well, Isaac wanted to go for the aggressive play. He walks up Annihilation. Who does he find? Sky in the back line. Sky will die for that, but what do the trades look like? Much better for ENCE. They don't even care about Isaac. They're happy to give away Sky's life so that ENCE can push forward for Solo at the lead. Kevster to follow through and Maimona finish things up. And oh yeah, cannot handle the pressure. As mentioned, 0 support ultimates. That's what they needed. Annihilation, great. But you either have to be a defensive Annihilation, just chilling and playing as 5, or Isaac's going to push forward. And I think he probably made the wrong call. They're pushing forward, opens his team in the back line to just getting swarmed on. That's exactly what ENCE do. And they have the tools to do so. Once guys pop the nano in there, his job is mostly done.
Now, Isaac doesn't really have the mobility to dive a backline solo and then actually be a fixture in the coming engagement. That's not what his hero is designed to do. Still,
okay, this is good. They want to go straight to point to force the better angles for Gurkmeister. I think that's where the junk is going to be better on this map, so that's a good start.
You know, Isaac really wants to try and do a lot of spacing between him and the rest of his team to make sure that Junkrat is very safe, or at least threats coming in, give him lots of notice. But that causes him to get a little bit caught out here. Can again, a successful an assassination rather of a backliner. It's going to be Sky Reaper falling at the start of this fight. And Cypher, of course, has the mobility to avoid any such reprisal. But, I mean, it's going to be Corboy getting eliminated there. I think Maimon came in clutch with the sticky bombs. And, oh yeah, actually losing a couple of fights where they start with a player advantage.
You know what's really, really bad here for OWCS is that neutral does count for a lot, because if you are OWCS, you're quite good at playing for a little bit of a soft spawn camp, you know, where all these corridors are, these hallways here. If you are the winning team for the neutral, then you get to start camping ENCE, and that's where the junk is good. Unfortunately, they're going to have to go for a retake with the junk, and probably not going to be able to make the rotation coast side, so they're going to go through the side holes here. That's, again, where the junk is good, but eventually you have to go to the point. Eventually you have to push out.
And they're never going to get dove on. I mean, ENCE are not going to fully commit to a fight against them unless they're guaranteed to win it. So OWCS are going to be waiting quite a while to get that engagement.
Capping.
Okay, that's a decent start, I suppose. They still need to get the rest of their team onto the point, though. A little bit of a scary area to play for with the Junkrat right now. This open space doesn't feel like he does much, and still he's caught Kellex out in the open, apparently, with one of those grenades. So now ENCE here, down that Lucio yet again. Sky might be forced to dig deep here for this nano boost. It's going to be Maimon duping the Ramatra here. Is he in position to get value? No, it looked like a time buy, if anything.
Alex is coming back. They haven't killed him. OWCS weren't able to convert up to 5v4. Now they lose Ken.
How does Ken go down there? Nano boost over to Vistola. Gives him that little spike in damage perhaps when it was needed. Ken maybe not ready for it. Either way, that's the Tracer gone, and now Kevster is free. He doesn't have to look out for his opposite number and can focus on diving those backlines, flanking, and getting rid of those supports.
It's hard purchase for OWCS to be able to find even the opening pick, and they kind of just fumble it. They had the +1, the 5v4, and Calyx managed to come back from spawn. OWCS don't convert anything further from that. By the way, look at Gurkmeister's damage. He doesn't have an ultimate yet. We're like basically 99% through when you know combine the two percentages of both points here. He just hasn't found much damage because Junk doesn't fare well in these open spaces.
Yeah, no opportunity here really to find that free damage. Riptire coming up fairly soon, but it's going to be pretty late in the day to have that ability online. Kane here is going to attract the attention of Kevster at the very least. They're going to look to stop him from backcapping, and now Junk might be in a better position. Here comes that Riptire. Thought about sending it airborne there, but instead will settle for some damage off Vistola, ultimately resulting in his demeching, but he goes for a self-destruct instantly and gets a free kill for it. Vistola is getting so much value here. Calyx eventually has to succumb to this annihilation, and Sky Ripper has been felled, so no supports up for ENCE now. Can Vistola use the health pool he has remaining to dive in and get rid of Cyper? That has to be the most important part of this fight, and it takes him too long. In fact, he never gets there.
No, Sippy gets out, TP away, Suzu must have come back online or something. And actually a pretty decent tie from Gurkmeister. He was under pressure, still manages to find the mech of Vistola, forces the remake and an early sound barrier. A little bit of a misplay from Calyx and Vistola. Didn't quite save the mech there. Now they've run out of ultimate, save for the nano coming online, which is going to be important.
Good off angle here for Maimon. Good sticky bomb purchase. Look at how low in health Isaac is. And a focusing beam would have been enough to bring the Ramatra down, but their eyes are focused on Cyper. That is going to be the Kiriko out of the picture now. For one of the first times it feels this round that we've actually seen Kiriko finally get run down. And this will be ENCE now in last fight territory, and a stagger on Gurkmeister here could actually favor them. Cypher returns here with a swift step, but that is going to cause them in turn to be staggered, meaning that OWCS cannot be at full strength for this last engagement.
It's going to be Doom coming back. Ken's already under pressure, can't even touch, has to burn the recall early, and that ends it for Oh yeah, on map number 1. Honestly, it was a good showing on Control Center. We knew they were going to be strong there. That's where, you know, Brawl's going to work out for them. That's where, you know, the Junkrat's going to work out for them. Very, honestly, it's a poor look for ENCE to kind of fail on the Lucio BAP look. It's not ideal for them. It's probably not a very well-practiced comp for them, so they need to look at that. But once you get to the open maps, once they move towards the Diva Dive, that's when Kev goes back on the Tracer. That's when they start fragging.
I mean, ENCE can't afford a protracted neutral against the Junkrat composition, especially in parts of the map that really lend itself to the bouncing of the grenades and in general AoE damage. So they have to find a way to opt out of that convention, of that part of the round entirely, and they do so while trying to make these nice little dives happen, getting into the backline. They're still tough to do. I've got to give credit where it's due. Oh yeah, do try and play to their strengths in terms of where they position on the map here. And picks like Junkrat maybe don't always look that strong on face of it, but when you have this map control, like when you push off Control Center, and then the other team has to try and find their way through the halls, that's when that comp becomes really oppressive. And that is why we saw such a blowout result here. I feel like it took a while for ENCE to wake up, the sleeping Kraken as it were. Definitely needed to be roused, but eventually we saw them go to something that suited Vistola's hero pool, put Kevster back on a Tracer and not on an Ashe, and allowed Mimone to play that Echo.
I just think it's a comp swap. I think you want to put ENCE on their specialist heroes. I shouldn't say specialist, but their best heroes, right? What is Kevster most well known for? It's the Tracer. He's the best Tracer in EMEA. He's going to carry the team any day of the week. The Kevster show does happen, you know. I just think Kevster shoe says, and you know that's basically what happened on rounds 2 and 3 moving forward. But actually, I think Mimone will be probably the most important piece in this particular matchup because again, if Ken can't really shut him down on the Ashe because he's playing the Tracer instead, Kirkmeister's never going to swap off the Junkrat, so we can forget about that. Then Mimone's going to have a pretty free game. So unless Isaac decides to do something special here, move over towards something like a Diva. I would actually like to see for future maps maybe Chasm come to plan because I do think Bull is pretty good in this meta. You look towards Crazy Raccoon. Yeah, they're the best team in the world, and I'll say Junbin's the best ball player in the world as well. Chasm needs to be the one to show that he can actually be better than that, but if Chasm comes in and plays a ball map, I actually think that's an opportunity for OWCS to maybe do something special that no other team in this region can do.
We have seen OWCS in the past in different permutations of this roster make like decent runs. Like they have looked quite good. And some of that success has been found on virtue of their like one trick nature, right? Or the fact that they're always going to throw a relatively unexpected comp. It's something that like Infected is able to do over in NA, right? Switch to that ball, and they played a fair bit of ball over in Dallas, that NRG Shock team right now. It felt like they put more pressure on those APAC teams, or their opponents than, you know, many other rosters at that event that weren't also from the APAC region. So that is definitely something you can lean on. I think in my headcanon, Kevin, I've chosen to believe that OWCS have specifically gone out to find a Junkrat player to replace Kaya. Like they have gone out there like that. Yeah, they're like, no, we need this. This is a part of our identity here. And you do note, like, there's a couple Riptire uses. The one on Control Center buys a bunch of time. That's about it, right? It really forces ENCE to respect it. On Night Market, they can't afford to respect it. It gets some good damage on Vistola. He just gets Sound Barrier, uses ult, gets a free kill with ult after already getting an elimination and goes back about his
They lost that fight, remember?
Yes.
ENCE lost that fight.
Yeah. I don't know how. Because
I think it's because they double ulted, and that was one of the things that happened was the double ult between the Vistola remake and also the Calyx sound barrier. Clearly, Calyx was trying to save Vistola's mech from being demeched, and you know the sound barrier comes down probably a little bit too early, and you know some more things happened that fight. But that's the first thing I noticed, and I'm sure a couple of things also turned things around for there.
We'll call it forced errors there on the side of ENCE. Yeah, so obviously...
But the tires were good. I actually did like all the tires. I think every tire was actually value.
Again,
it's just a hard thing to do versus ENCE.
Yes, and sometimes it's like less tangible value, right? But we saw the tires used in some parts of the maps that, again, allow you to play that tire out of line of sight and you know, sort of get it into the fight only when you're ready. Or it just is a great zoning ultimate, and that's quite acceptable too. So... it is loser pick here. I want to remind everybody. So, does get to make a selection of map. Now, if they're going to play Rush, Runasapi is an option here on push. Colosseo, I guess, is also an option if they want to go there. We've seen this Rush style obviously find good success on both New Junk City and Surabasa respectively, although the latter gives you maybe a little bit more flexibility and some other options. Still very, very early on in the series. That was only our first map done. Lijiang Tower ended up going quite the distance.
If they really want to play Rush, I think Shambali is right at the top of my list. Circuit possibly, but then you have to go against the Vistola Sigma. I don't really know if ENCE are going to really do any tank subs here. I think at this point, like, yeah, you can play Chase, but you have to understand that Chase is unlikely to go to any international event. And ENCE have used Vistola the entire way through, even at all the internationals, even when Chase plays during the season. So I think Vistola is going to be the clear starter here for ENCE and for OWYEAH. My thing for them is I still think they should eventually, they're not going to go there now, they have Colosseo on the board, but I would like to see them go towards like a Survasa or something. We can really get Chasm's ball into play. It's a fantastic ball map. Jimbo and Crazy Raccoons plays it every single time. So change something up. If the brawl matchup isn't working, then you got to change it up a little.
I do think that's one of the interesting parts about ENCE, and something that defines them is that they have 2 tank players, but if it's at LAN, they don't actually have that option. Right? They always end up relying on Vistola. And I just want to foreshadow the fact that we're looking at a metagame where, you know, we are seeing like a little bit less of that rush. I think Vistola having the Diva available is going to be important, but you know, there might be times where having that Winston option could be pretty critical. We don't know that yet. I think even SSG don't know that yet for sure. As we, you know, Hardy said, we just really want to get this comp in our back pocket and available. And Diva is a reasonable analog against a 2 Winston and also performs fairly well individually up against Winston, but there are a lot of things that you miss out on, and that is a hero where Chase is, you know, particularly very good. I think Chase plays the whole series yesterday for this team, so they are just rotating their tank players. I think I watched Chase play. They played like, yeah, basically every map. There is a Ramatra map there. I think they actually ENCE do play Colosseo. They do play their Ramatra style composition with like an Ashe and May, so keep an eye out for that.
I would actually put, if I was to tier list the heroes right now, I'd actually put Diva ahead of Winston. Me personally, I think Diva's really strong on this patch, and just as a reminder as well, season 12 is around the corner, so things might change up and Chase might get a little bit more playtime if, you know, the Winston or the main tank heroes start to come a little bit more. But Kai being subbed in for Colosseo, so we're going to see the Tracer and also the Ashe, possibly for Kevs to also play towards the Pharah here, which I think is pretty amazing on Colosseo. So more difficulties potentially for Gurk, who, on some level, if you are going to go towards a push, Colosseo, especially inside the mid, that sort of concourse area, that's pretty reasonable for Junkrat. He's obviously not going to do too much in the open space again. But also, I think you can get pretty creative with Riptides on this map as well. There's a lot of different angles, push in particular for Riptides. So if he did well with the Riptide on a harder map for Riptide Valley, I think he's going to do better here.
Challenging though, the glass obviously being knocked out of that central sort of concourse makes it a little bit harder to like sneak a tire around. So obviously that area is a little bit more open, or like we've sort of discussed, you really do want to try and use those in more confined spaces, but they are present on this particular map. You can also drop it down off the high ground, which could be effective if we start to see OWYEAH placed in on the back foot or in a more defensive position, because they will, you know, by definition, be offered that high ground to work with. We're headed in just a moment, folks. It's going to be ENCE after a far rockier, far closer Lijiang Tower than we would have expected. But this is a team that has had a couple of changes, right? A little bit of a facelift in recent times. We got the retirement of Crimzo, Ghost departing the team, of course, a very dependable sort of support player. We saw a lot of Baptiste and Brig, and Kellex now coming in. Say again?
He's with Cloudy now, so he's been stolen by SRP. Check.
He's chilling. The Finnish coalition is continuing to form. Watch out.
Masters next. I think they're ironing up, maybe. Chill on the bench for ENCE right now, but there's possibly Lucio spot. Maybe. We'll see.
Or he'll just retire by just saying it randomly, like the most anticlimactic tweet ever. Like, I'm retiring.
Professional fisher. You know, that'll be the next career choice for him, I think.
Here we go. It'll be the Diva here for ENCE once more. Oh yeah, do have their Sigma-based composition, so they are going to be playing a little bit slower here. And they're actually expecting a slower look from ENCE because they brought in a Zenyatta.
Maybe a little bit greedy here for OWYEAH, I might say, in the back line. It's definitely going to be really, really clear targeting for Kevster. It's going to reveal his position behind. I also think the tire being there, the trap being there is a bit of an early warning sign. I don't think Kevster should have actually killed that.
He doesn't have to kill that.
Steel trap. Because he kind of revealed himself early, but whatever.
I think he wants to pull focus from the junk away. That's the only reason I can think that he'd be willing to give his presence up.
And by the way, you can tell OWYEAH really are all inning on this early concourse mid, because that's what their comp's designed to do. You're playing Sigma double flex with Zenyatta as well, who dies to Kai.
It's so vulnerable, right? It's very susceptible to Zen look. And maybe if you're expecting like a Ramatra or Sig composition, like this Zen feels a little bit better. It's like it needs time, right? It needs time to get value out of that Discord orb in general. But against the Diva comp, ENCE aren't necessarily going to give you the breathing room to accrue that value from your damage amplification over time.
It's another situation where, like, if you're going to play the Zen and Sipe swap now over towards the Kiriko instead, you are going to out-damage into the long-range battles. You are going to win the pokes, like, basically 100% of the time, especially when Kevs is on a long flank, and he still is currently now. He's basically not been part of any fights. He still does have 77%, so I suppose he's done damage. Let's see what OWCS can do with a fresh swap on the Sipe. He does lose his ult for that.
All right, we see the pressure here being applied by Isaac. Obviously, knowing that Accretion is pretty powerful against D.Va, she doesn't have a shield to work with, so it is going to be Vistola having to respect this a lot of the time. We'll see the D-Mech here. That's that Gurkmeister damage, baby. It's a little diff. And Kefster has just been so careful about actually diving his backline. I think he's worried about getting, like, burst down by remote mine combo.
He just doesn't want to. It's very hard. Like, Vistola has to kind of go in with him. You also just can't play the Pulse here, by the way, because you've got Suzu and Emo to deal with. So, two abilities that will just deny your Pulse entirely. It's really difficult. You can force them out, though. If you just play the Pulse to force out abilities, that's also valid.
But sometimes if you have both of those abilities, the team with them tends to use them more frivolously. So, you might find them easier to draw out in the case your opponent feels like they have everything. Well, Gravitic Flux there for Isaac doesn't go well at all. Meanwhile, Vistola made that dive in. So while Isaac is in that ultimate, which is fine, Gravitic Flux is great, he can't really do anything to help his team as they get swarmed by ENCE.
Isaac swapping off. They're slowly shifting over towards the dive here as well, and at some point, Coolboy might need to look over towards the Lucio. I predict this is going to be a window strength to the Lucio pick. They need to transfer over to a dive properly if they're going to play the D.Va here, just like ENCE are doing. But ENCE hold all the cards currently. Look at those ultimates. Ken will have this Bob available, and again, we're looking forward to the Gurkmeister tire.
As always, it's always a highlight for... Oh my god! Oh, you can't murk the Gurk like that. That's just wrong.
Welcome to Kevster. This is what it's like to play against Kevster Gurkmeister, unfortunately. I don't know about Junkrat's matchup versus Tracer. Maybe you can hit a rare conk mine, but not onto Kevin. Now the cap has come on through. Oh yeah, kind of finding all their first ultimates here. Every single ultimate you see on board is their first ultimate, I'm pretty sure. Just about. Could be wrong there, but Isaac obviously used the flux a little bit earlier. Here comes Window.
Okay, are you hoping to make some use of that here? It's not in the best spot, though, with the fight happening in the low ground here. Isaac going to be demeched already. Bob deployed by Ken. And Sky, at least, is going to be picked off now.
Sippy.
Sippy's doing a lot of work here. His kunai's going to work. It's giving Violet right now. And it ends about how Violet's runs do as well. Kelex runs him down. Although ENCE are not really at full strength, they still want to try and contest the boss.
Oh, they shouldn't be able to. They lost two members. It's basically 3v5 with the respawns happen for OWCS, but they're actually still managing just to keep things interesting slightly. And okay, here we go. Now the cleanup finally comes through. That was two really important picks coming through from Sippy to push ENCE away and stop the pressure from mounting to 100 meters plus. And as expected, Coolboy does go over towards the Lucio, and this is probably going to end up being their final comp for, well, maybe not. Ken might still go over towards Tracer if things get a little bit freaky. For now, this is going to be the comp they land on. Tire is available. How does this one get played? Again, Tire can be used pretty well on this map.
Chav's dealing with Suzu and Lamp. Don't forget that.
It's gone.
Riptide gets picked off. It's another day at the Kovacs range for Kai. Comfortably able to deal with that ability. Now the Nano on towards D.Va. Look at Isaac. Can't get involved. Forced to look on. And Vistola actually doubles back in his direction. Realizes he might have a free kill. Vistola has to eject here, go for the remake. A little risky, but Isaac doesn't fancy sticking around for the explosion, for the chance to try and take that baby D.Va down. And Gurkmeister's in trouble. Much of that damage being
gets out.
Heal from Isaac is good, but Kai sees him pop up and says, well, don't mind if I do.
All right, so Kovacs continuing. Easy targets here so far. Oh, yeah. Now looking down the barrel of 100 meters for ENCE with less than 5 minutes left to go through. I don't want to say it's over, but it's getting difficult. Gurk is going to be forced to swap off.
Oh, yeah.
Onto another silly hero, but he is off the junk.
Now I know why they call this team this name. It's the emotion that they evoke. Isaac very, very low here. Lucky to get out with his mech still intact. And that may still not be the case. Kevster really would love to get a Matrix out of the way that could potentially eat a bomb. The third of the things that could counter this Tracer ultimate. And Ken is down. Your flank pressure is minimal. Now, if you're Sky Reaper, you're going to start throwing those Bionades in. You're going to get aggressive. Sound Barrier going to be used here by Kelex. Now, Kevster also finally finds a good pulse target, and it's Coolboy going down. He's up against it. So many things to make it hard to do Tracer things in this game, and Kevster's able to circumvent every one of them. Isaac removed after being demeched by that Dynamite, and the Suzu is just prolonging the suffering for your boy Gurkmeister. Today's protagonist is definitely taking his licks.
You're seeing it. You're going to see a cap out here. Coolboy needs the sound barrier of his life. He's going to Ajax, maybe? No, he's not.
All right, Sound barrier here. Gurkmeister on the Widowmaker. Yet another rabbit pulled out of the hat here. Just starting to understand what kind of hero pool that player has. This Mistella dives in. Doesn't really want to settle on the Diva here. Would love a squishy target to make use of that nano against, but doesn't really find them. Is forced to back away with that DM. Now watch out for those Widow headshots.
And it's don't have much to work with here, but they do have full 5 available. All you just need one pick, a single pick. This is why Gurk's now on towards the Widowmaker. Seeing like triple, quadruple the amount of swaps I thought I'd see from Gurk. My skill didn't spawn Kevsa. No respect at all. Kevsa spawn door challenge maybe completely. Isaac can't get back into mech, and I think that's the full cap out, Mitch.
Yeah, there's no way you're coming back from this one. Oh yeah, have been completely squashed back into their spawn. That was the nice way to say it. I had something else in mind. They're tougher. Oh yeah, of course they have tried to, like play this Junkrat comp out of the gates here with the Sigma setup, right? Let's have great poke. Let's have awesome neutral damage, and then let's find like a low health target, and then press on them a little bit more with like a tracer or something similar. And ENCE really knew how to play around that. The patience from Kevster all round to never just dive in solo to the backline to try and assassinate. Look, it's something we expect from him, but seeing it play out there against a comp that you know is like pretty fallible, pretty exploitable, that's real discipline.
Kevster just shows up at the right time, you know. Like, I actually agree with what you said earlier right at the start, where he kills a steel trap, and that probably is just to like buy attention away, because you instantly see Gurkmeister turn around and start throwing the nades out in that direction, so it eases attention up for the rest of the team. But yeah, he doesn't really have to show up when it's risky. He can afford to just wait for his moment to strike. And Kai as well really showed up in this game, denying everything, denying the tire, having all the long range damage. Eventually, I sort of mentioned as well, Ken might look to swap over towards the Tracer. Indeed, he does. And I think this just ends up being a situation where OWCS wanted to kind of one-trick this hardcore poke. It's like, what's the most hardcore poke we can play? Like a BAP Zen Sigma into an Ashe with a Junkrat. You know, that's basically one step removed from going over towards Zafara, which is what the meta pick would be. And, you know, that's partially a pretty reasonable comp. You'd probably see the Alari instead of the Zen there. But point being, like, that comp can work, but also the execution wasn't there and they had to swap.
The comp also doesn't have a great way of like directly pressuring opponents' DPS players. Like you cannot run up on them. You cannot tax them like that. So if Kai is allowed to just like literally just fight against an Ashe in a mirror at long range, that's probably where he feels pretty good. Games in which we've seen Kai neutralized are the ones where he doesn't get space, he doesn't get room to breathe. So that's why mirroring this composition, or at least mirroring the Ashe against ENCE and not having a tracer component, like Kai's peak is probably higher than yours if you're on any team that's going up against them. You'd probably rather, answer his threat as opposed to trying to match it. I appreciate like this team wants to stick to their guns, but the Junkrat being there means you can't play Ashe Tracer. You play Ashe Junk or Tracer Junk.
I actually think on paper it should be harder for Kai to get an advantage in that matchup, because they're up against Sigma with Shield versus D.Va Matrix, which can be a little bit more limited. You're also up against way more long-range damage.
Also, if you get discorded, you should get out of. Yeah, you should run away.
But for the people that are keen to watch back, you actually notice Kai had a number of good shots there. He was able to outmaneuver and still find opening shots. So remember a kill on the Zen quite early, which is like, okay, that's interesting, because he shouldn't have advantage. He shouldn't have priority in that matchup at all. He should actually be under pressure. But he manages to outfrag even despite odds being against him, in my opinion.
Lots to talk about in this game so far, but it's ENCE who have managed to stave off yet another map choice here from Stick around, map 3 in this first of 3 series. We'll recommence after the break. We are elbow deep in this series here between and ENCE. And after a first map that looked a little bit rocky for ENCE, as I'd say took some time to get to grips with the Junkrat composition they were faced with, Colosseo was a much cleaner sheet. A full cap on that map with at least 3 minutes remaining. Pretty comfortable finish there. We got to see a little bit of the flexibility of They obviously had to make a couple of swaps here, and like you called, Avril, they were slowly being bent into playing that D.Va mirror comp. They tried to start with a Sigma Zen look, but it did not work for them at all.
They look like forced swaps. That's like, oh, this is really not working, guys. We need to do something about this. And I also want to say, getting fully capped on a Colosseo, like that's domination. I think that's just like, you got booty blasted. I'm sorry if you're all in that situation. You getting capped on a Colosseo is like really dominant. So ENCE really shot up there. Kai in particular, subbed in straight away, instant value. Even in, I think, what is a negative matchup for him, he'll move on forward. But we're in a situation where we have a sub. Gurk is out, Kaiser is in, Chasm is not in. So maybe not going to see a ball today. I'm a little disappointed. I really wanted to see the ball.
Yeah, Chasm being left in the drafts for the time being. Gurkmeister, obviously the Junkrat play is mostly what we've seen from them over the course of this series, one of the newest additions to OWCS YEAH. And it looked good on map 1, it looked a little less good, maybe ungood on map number 2. Dorado here being our third map definitely makes sense to dispense with the Junkrat play. It's very, very hard to make that work. In case it comes in, of course, we know Kaiser is a predominantly main player in the past. Obviously, there's potential for a couple of other picks from them here alongside Ken. And like you mentioned, yeah, no Wrecking Ball potential will be...
Ball's good here. Like, Dorado's actually a good ball map, so that's another thing I'm looking at. So, got a little disappointed. Maybe Isaac, which, he's hovering the Winston right now. It could be a ball. Sorry, it could be a Winston, but then the May doesn't make a lot of sense, so those other picks you mentioned for Kaiser might have to come on through, because they're basically on what I would say a proper comp now, like a real legitimate composition with the Brigana onto the Winston on the Ash. They're just kind of, missing the Tracer that would really complete things, or at minimum you'd like to see possibly an Echo or a Fire.
Yeah, maybe Sim out of the gates here and then a Tracer switch for OWCS YEAH. And of course, you've got plenty of mechanisms to keep the Farah well topped up between the Ana and the Brig. Pretty common to see them paired with her. Isaac here, no Winston. So some of that conversation we had earlier about maybe D.Va superseding Winston a little bit, especially in the head-to-head, may have come to
fruition. They're going to play the May. Yeah, it's the odd piece out again, It's the meme with, all the soldiers lined up, and unfortunately one of them is in a clown costume. And
yeah.
That clown costume here is going to be the May. It just doesn't work with this D.Va. You're literally playing Brigana, which is a quintessential diving. Look at what ENCE are doing. You just need the Tracer here. It would be complete.
So Kaiser on the May. We're going to be looking to see how this slightly off-the-wall pick can find value here. Ken, good pressure, though, on Kai. This is a map where Kai tends to shine. Ken going to be forced back. The D-Mech of the D.Va there. The Stoller going to be knocked on out. And again, his high ground presence here for OWCS well and truly established. Isaac. Bionade came in, though, when he couldn't save Saipe. Going to be Stoller able to charge in there, circumvent the defense matrix that would have kept the Brig standing. And now we have some priority for ENCE as they still maintain this high ground.
Would love to see OWCS YEAH be able to use the fact that D-Mech to Vistola, he actually gets back at the mech, and that's just not what you're looking for. You should have a 5v4 essentially in that situation. At least to get the payload up, that's minimum. Payload's now an archway that opens up the map a little bit if they want to flank. Nano up first, available, both teams.
Still, ENCE really not incentivized to drop down off this high ground at all. Sky Reaper a little bit concerned about the Bionade that came in, but there doesn't appear to be any follow-up. It's a little late. Comes in eventually from Isaac, but that's been shrugged off already. The Bionade no longer a factor. Rally here has to be used by Saipe, and that's Vistola's cue to get the heck out. Bob going to be thrown on in. Vistola realizes he might have anywhere to go, but Kaiser gets caught out by that pulse bomb. Looked like Saipe was almost about to walk into it too. Bob will persist for a little bit longer, and Vistola is very low, but was able to hold on to that self-destruct for a later time, a later remech opportunity. And eventually Kai gets the better of his opposite number. Ken sent tumbling back to spawn.
Isaac actually trolled that fight, I'm not gonna lie. He actually went in and decided to dive at about 95%, couldn't find the self-destruct, so no remake situation, and Coolboy was forced to nano Ken. I mean, if you're gonna dive in as Isaac, you must receive the nano from Coolboy minimum, or at least have your ultimate available. He just rocks up, loses mech, and goes into baby form and does nothing in the fight. Meanwhile, OWCS is still committing ults, Nano still comes through, Bob still comes through, Reddick still comes through, and OWCS just hurting for that.
Oh my god, Sky Reaper just tore Ken a new one. Straight to the Shadow Realm with you here with a Bionade, and the follow-up damage was great. The Sky was well and truly trained on that Ash, who's looking a little bit vulnerable with Isaac isn't standing close by with the defense matrix. Oh.
Good marking here. Kaiser should go down. That should be a +1.
Throw the wall.
Actually, saved.
I think Vistola was body blocked by the May and couldn't get behind them to sort of be there when the wall came up, but still, OWCS scattered to the four winds. They are so dashed aside. Another ice block wall combo for Kaiser this time, though. Kai's waiting on the other side, rubbing his hands together.
You also are not going to find a good Blizzard opportunity until you get the point basically capped at the end, right? So Blizzard coming through here, unless you can find a way to shove it on the high ground, but they're just losing players time and time again. Kev's just showing up with the kill feed. OWCS trying to flank through underground, but it's just not going to work out at all. You're about to hit up final fight here. More ultimates are about to come online. This will be the second round of good ultimates for OWCS, second nano for Coolboy. And this time it definitely needs to go into Isaac to get them forward. Oh, okay, should be done.
That is a huge stagger here. OWCS need to stop. They just need to stop for just a moment. They don't have enough time, though. That is half the issue. They have one real fight of it, You can see even in that case, Ken is trending in the opposite direction from Isaac, who needs to try and be proactive and peel at the same time.
Kai's got Bob.
I mean, he can't even really force Vistola back. Isaac's trying to get in to the defensive Diva's face, but Vistola's more than happy to linger, get some free damage.
They can't rotate. It's OT. They can't afford to rotate. The team's trying to rotate.
They've lost Kevster as well. So that is something to work with for... Oh, yeah, but Kaiser goes down to the dynamite. Isaac low, constantly low here with a self-destruct, at least for a remake. Bob not to the low ground here. Gotta get some free damage, at least over towards Isaac, but not in a position to threaten Saipe and Co, who are playing from the high ground. Rally is active here, but can they keep Isaac standing? It looks like ENCE have given some ground here. The core boys down, and that has got to be a death knell here for the attacking side. Looks like Saipe was forced to back up as well. Oh, Lisa now got thrown out here, but the Blizzard gets eaten up, and this is going from bad to worse. The pocket pick of May has looked absolutely horrendous this map so far. Vistola just easily dodges away from that self-destruct and gets back to business instantly.
I might even use the word liability, unfortunately, for the May. Just feeding ultimates, feeding kills. Kaiser coming back now over towards the Venture, but a little bit too late as Ken will not find the Bob. Ouya will not find the cap. This is the cleanup.
Yeah, this is absolutely over. They are attempting for Isaac to come back. Venture was the pick for Kaiser, which may have been preferable out of the gates in general. And that will be a very lackluster attack side from Oh Yeah. And the problem is, as we see the May, we know what she is supposed to do in a vacuum. The only times we saw a May wall was to guarantee Kaiser's escape. There was no picks or catch opportunities sort of generated by that. And why would there be? The defenders had such a mobile composition and were playing from the high ground the whole round.
There's like one good place for the May. You see right there, that archway before the payload, that's about it. And not even on attack, by the way, because, well, ENCE don't have to play that area. And, well, the Blizzard finally came on through, and Vistola just gobbled that one up. So we didn't see a Blizzard. He only had one Blizzard, by the way. One Blizzard, the entire 4-minute attack, and it was lost instantly. So on the defense, probably going to lock in the May again, we have to assume. And if he does, at least the archway is very playable for the May. Okay, that's where they got to get their bread buttered. If there's one place they can try and win, it's got to be at the archway. If they lose control of the archway, obviously they lose the entire map because, well, the golden box of victory is like 2 meters after the archway.
They can't afford to just stack everyone on the other side of that choke. They still need to maintain that high ground presence. At least Casey here can try and punish Vistola with a wall if they dive them. But again, if you're playing Diva, you have extreme mobility, and Winston can bubble down and,
by the way,
jump out eventually as well.
How do you contest payload? Because the thing here is, you know, the way you play Dorado is solo traces are usually the payload pushes. Is Kaiser going to do that as a solo May? It's possible, but it's dangerous.
God, it feels awful though. It feels awful.
Yeah, you know, so you're going to play an all-in situation where Ouya's going to try and Diva dive in, May there as well. There's no sim, obviously, so they're just going to hard force it on rotates. Oh, sorry, well, on the Diva. You get my point like that. Kaiser has to basically potentially play the payload, or Isaac's going to have to do that, but he's just got too much of a job to do.
Isaac takes a face full of damage there. Kev's to be able to switch to the Echo after, so he can be the loose end here on part of the flanking pin, so you can see those shots coming in from the left side of screen. There's a May wall, doesn't create a catch. If anything, slows ENCE down slightly, but they're still running this first corner with the cart. Vistola's going to break that line of sight for as long as he can and then dive.
It's actually hard for ENCE to push that upper balcony area because, well, that's prime May ice wall location. So that's actually another place where Kaiser can be quite useful on the May, but Kev's now moving over towards the Echo. So flying options have opened up.
Line of sight being broken up here briefly for Cool Boy, but Isaac's done well to avoid taking any damage in the absence of that Ana healing. No catch there from that dynamite. ENCE playing safely around that corner, and we'll wait till Vistola shrugs off the Bionade.
Isaac's just walking up taking loads of damage, and ENCE has to fly down. The only good thing here for Ouya is that no one pushing the payload. That's about it.
They also used the defensive Bionade there, did ENCE, so they couldn't use it aggressively. Vistola here clearly doesn't mind being walled off and caught with Kaiser. Apparently the wall was already used, so that's not an option. The easiest pick ever to find that May. And a fat Bionade from Sky here, punishing Ken and Cool Boy. This is going to force a pretty desperate nano boost out. And Isaac's going to at least use it to dive, and he goes straight in the direction of Sky. That cart, though, still advancing as we speak. And the self-destruct used for Isaac, that is just not allowed. Getting caught out, trying to still chase that kill on the Echo instead of playing safer. Gets him picked off.
The Bob is the one chance here for Ouya to maybe get a defense going, but yeah, Ken and Cool Boy are dead. Isaac's coming back, and Sippy's the only one there. In fact, he's not even there. It's over.
That is that. Oh yeah, come crashing down as ENCE deliver the death blow on Dorado. Ultimately, a pretty one-sided series after we get out of Lijiang Tower. ENCE finally get the measure of them. staying with Vistola for most of the series, showing how powerful the D.Va can be. The Winston also making a brief appearance for Vistola, which is, I want to remind everybody, not a pick that we often see from them. Nice to see them working it in here to give themselves that deeper level of optionality should it come to a LAN event where it's just Vistola.
I mean,
I really want to see Chasm next time. That's all I want to say.
That's as a resident ball player, and I'll never forgive you for throwing our talent takedown.
You were there. You were on the payload too. You were right there. Okay.
But not to make this about us, it's about them. And yeah, no ball on the server. We did see the Gurk, of course, on Junk, which, while it was entertaining and while that made sense in some
Still a king.
parts of the map, yeah, still a king, winner of the hearts and all that good stuff. But, you know, like, if you're throwing in compositions like that, it's just not going to work against veteran players like Kevster, Vistola, like you go up against a quite stacked veteran roster, and they're not going to fall for those shenanigans. You might grab a point here and there, but that's about it. And if you don't have more in your arsenal, and then you end up in situations like we had in Colosseo, you get completely forced off of your composition, right? So at that point, you've lost.
Look, I mean, the best comps in Overwatch are ones that don't require you to play to the map. It's not like, oh, if I use Tracer and they're in close quarters, she's going to be way better. It's like, no, Tracer is universally effective. She's flexible,
yeah,
and it gives you like a wide range of game plans. Junkrat is like, okay, I do need to play within like relatively close quarters here, and I'm pretty vulnerable if I'm not being shielded or if I'm stepping out of line of sight. I can't flank safely because I don't deal too well with that level of pressure if someone like tries to walk up on me. So it can work, right? There's definitely scenarios in which it does work and becomes very oppressive. We saw that on Lijiang Tower, but over the course of the series, you can't bank on that strategy to take you home.
Yeah, I mean, it was, they were not the favorite to win it, let's put it that way. So it was an uphill battle to begin with, and we got this.
They got one round.
Notes. Exactly.
They got one round, and I think that actually does.
That was a good round.
It speaks reasonably okay to OWCS, but I think it's a little concerning for ENCE. You can chalk it up to maybe, you know, first round jitters. I don't know if that's entirely true, just because this is a veteran team. I just think they're maybe not that proficient on the brawl composition. Maybe not with their new lineup. Remember, they got a couple of new members on this team. So that needs to be addressed. I think that's potentially exploitable for other top teams out there. Like SSG, they're the best brawl team out here. So if it's ENCE versus SSG again, I mean, that's a position of failure for ENCE.
Yeah, but then again, they ramped it up quickly afterwards. Like, it really was literally just on CC, on Lijiang Tower. They struggled a little bit, and the composition from the opposition just snowballed with that Ramatra, which just became so very oppressive. And then Junk did the Junk things. So, like, I don't know how much stock to put into that particular round. Alas, of course, credit where credit is due. And speaking of credit that is due, it's always for Kevster. Okay, he's gonna be the man of the hour time and time again. There's not enough hours in the day to hand over to him.
Right. Yeah, bro's looking like Michael Phelps out here with all the medals on his neck, you know, getting all the MVP.
Yeah, I think that like he should call himself Kevmeister, I think. But outside of that, like that's no notes, no real notes outside of that. So Kevster has to play like in some scenarios that are pretty hostile to Tracer. I think we see that on Colosseo, right? He has to be really careful about how he engages. He must go with Vistola, and he has to play from pretty like far ranging off angles to do that. So you notice here, like there are quite a few times where he's like on point. He is absolutely in the mix when Vistola turns up, and all of a sudden, that, like, you know, D.Va, when she runs out of the defense matrix, does have a window of vulnerabilities. She also might have, like, you know, cooldowns that she has to cycle through. Tracer gets there and makes that dive, basically guarantee a kill. This was great little echo copy moment towards the end of the round here. We didn't get to see much of Dorado, in fairness, but if we want to use Colosseo as the real litmus test for performance over this series, like, Kevster was very, very good, having to play slightly from a different axis than normal.